Daniel Sports Central beginning you guys our way too early college football rankings for the 2024 college football season. We are about a month into this off season, and we're going to start looking forward to 2024 here today. This will be a look into what things could look like in the 2024 college football season, who the main national contenders could be, and maybe the contenders as well that are kind of dark horses looming in the background as we look forward to 2024. So with that, it's still very early, a lot of off season ahead, but let's get started with 1 through 5 in Georgia. Without a doubt, is number 1. I feel like this team is going to be your main preseason favorite to win the title, rightfully so. This is a team that's going to be experienced in 2024. They were a bit of a younger team in 2023, and despite all that, they still could have definitely won the national title. They got left out of the college football playoff, obviously, because of their loss in the SEC title game. But when you got Carson Beck coming back, you got a team with experience looking forward to 2024. I feel like Georgia should, without a doubt, be number 1. And really, after number 1, it really could go any way. And I feel like Texas, for me, is number 2. Ohio State could be there as well. They've really had some impressive recruiting the past month or so with the transfer portal especially. But Texas really looks impressive to me. This is a team that's got Quinn Ewers coming back. They've got a few key transfers. Obviously, Isaiah Bond coming in, Silas Bolden coming in for the receiving core. I mean, this is a team that offensively is going to be really tough. Their defense is the main area of, I would say, question for Texas. Their defense is going to be good, but is it going to be at a level where they could win a national title in 2024? That's the main question. But Texas is definitely looking like a true national contender. First season in the SEC for Texas. They should be right up there next to Georgia, I would say, even though Georgia, I do think, is in a way in a league of their own looking forward to 2024. But Ohio State, mentioned them. Obviously, you got Will Howard coming in from K-State, which is huge for the quarterback situation. Kyle McCord was okay last season. He just wasn't on the same level as a lot of Ohio State quarterbacks we've seen in recent times. So for the Buckeyes, I'd say they're probably the Big Ten favorite, but Oregon is not far behind. It's wild thinking of Oregon as a Big Ten team, but here we are. The Ducks really could win the Big Ten in 2024, but it's going to be tough, though, for a first-year team in a new conference to win the Big Ten title. It's possible, but I just don't see it being something that is going to happen, though. I feel like, Texas could do it. Oregon could definitely do it. But in the end, I would favor Ohio State and Georgia, respectively, in their conferences as of now. But Oregon is a team, without a doubt, they are stacked. You consider all that they're returning. You got Dylan Gabriel coming in from Oklahoma, which is huge. This is going to be a tough team in 2024 here in Oregon. And while they couldn't quite get past Washington in 2023, I think they'll be able to very much so in 2024, and they could definitely be right up there as a big national contender. Then you got Ole Miss at number 5, and this team very much could be a national contender as well when you consider Jackson Dart. The experience in this team is going to be tough. They are a stacked team, especially on offense. They did lose Judkins to Ohio State, their lead running back, but they also added in several key players from other places as well. And that's the main constant, I'd say, as well. Between Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, and Ole Miss, that's a big reason why these 4 teams are in the top 5 is because of how they performed in the transfer portal. Especially, I would say, Ohio State has really stood out in recent time. You consider Will Howard, you consider Quinshon Judkins, even Caleb Downs coming in from Alabama, which is huge. And you also consider they are returning most of their key players. That's why Ohio State is this high up. And honestly, Texas also added some key players. Isaiah Bond, most notably. You can't forget about Silas Bolden either. But that's the main thing between these top teams is they did so well in the transfer portal. And Georgia, not very much so, but Georgia doesn't even really need to because they're already so stacked of a team that they don't even really need to add much talent. But Ole Miss number 5, they're on the outside looking in. This is as good as Ole Miss really has been in a long time. They should be right up there as a big contender this upcoming season. 6 through 10, Notre Dame at number 6. Riley Leonard coming in from Duke. This will be a tough team once again in 2024. They kind of disappointed in 2023. I thought they would be better personally, but they ended up being kind of an outside contender. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're a college football playoff team in 2024. Riley Leonard, once again, added a lot of key players in the transfer portal as well. So another one of those teams towards the top that did really well in the transfer portal in Notre Dame. So keep an eye on them. Then you got Alabama at number 7. Alabama and Michigan are both big wild card teams for me. I really don't know how they're going to do. Obviously, significant coaching changes. Nick Saban's not coaching Alabama anymore, which is insane. It's Obviously, Kellen DeBoer instead coming in from Washington, which is an incredible coach. His team was incredible this past season, so I'm really not concerned about that. It's just the fact of a first-year head coach after losing Nick Saban, who's obviously the best, or I would say the best coach of all time. You could make an argument for otherwise, but I feel like it's pretty conclusive based on how he coached Alabama and the results of his teams. But Alabama, first-year head coach, and also, this isn't as talented of an Alabama team as we have seen in recent time. I feel like they could talent-wise be better in 2024 versus last season. Jalen Milroe, it's really going to land on him a lot as to whether or not he can improve significantly. If he can do so, Alabama should be right up there as well, and they should be in the college football playoff in 2024. Wouldn't be surprised, but I don't see them being a team that is going to be one of the lead favorites to win a national title, that's for sure. And then you got Penn State in between Alabama and Michigan. I do think Penn State is going to be better than Michigan in 2024. I think Michigan is going to drop off a bit more significantly than Alabama. Michigan just won a national title. Obviously an incredible run the past 3 seasons, but Jim Harbaugh's off to the NFL, and they're losing a lot more talent than Alabama is. Alabama's going to have some experience in 2024. Michigan, not so much. The quarterback situation is a question mark for me. J.J. McCarthy was obviously really good last season. He wasn't on an elite level, I would say. It really was the talent around him that was incredible for Michigan this past season, but they're losing a lot of key talent. I just don't know if they're going to be able to be a big national contender after obviously losing so much, and obviously Jim Harbaugh as well, who, led this team to 3 straight really incredible seasons. So I do think Michigan drops off a bit. I don't think they're going to be bad in 2024. I still think they're a 9-10 win team, but it just is not going to be the same for Michigan, and I feel like that's something that people are just going to have to accept for now. They could be a contender once again in a couple of years. 2024 is going to be different for sure, though. And Penn State's going to be a team that's going to be more experienced. The past 2 seasons, Penn State has been really tough, but the problem is they haven't gotten past Michigan or Ohio State. That's been the big hump for Penn State, is trying to beat those 2 teams, and they weren't able to do so the past 2 years despite being overall really good. So Penn State, I do think, finds a way to get over Michigan in 2024. I don't think they get over Ohio State, but despite that, they should still be pretty impressive this upcoming season. And then you got Tennessee. This is a team that's kind of a wild card as well. I feel like after 9, your top 9, these are your main national contenders. I would say top 6 especially are your main teams to keep an eye on. Then you got Tennessee at 10, and I feel like Tennessee could be good this season. They got obviously an impressive quarterback in Yama Leeva, but we haven't seen too much of him. He was impressive in their bowl game against a pretty tough Iowa defense, but they are losing a lot of key talent as well, so Tennessee does have a few question marks otherwise, but Tennessee is still a dark horse to keep an eye on. 11 through 15, Arizona is 11. I had them previously at 8 or 9 on my way to early rankings before they lost their coach to Washington. But the key thing is for Arizona is they retained most of their talent. Noah Fafita obviously really came around in the second half of the season. McMillan in the receiving core. This is a really talented Arizona team that really surprised in the second half of the season. I said this heading into their bowl game. Arizona is dangerous. They really, based on how they played down the stretch, I feel like in the postseason, they could have beaten almost anybody in the country based on how they were playing as a whole, especially that offense just really came around. And Arizona's a team to keep an eye on. Never would have expected that a couple of years ago, but they are dangerous. Looking forward to 2024, and it's going to be interesting to see how the coaching change affects this team. And I don't think it affects them a whole lot. This is still a team that's retained most everybody, but obviously, that is something worth noting, and their ceiling maybe not quite as high or quite as optimistic as when they had their coach still around, but Arizona is still a team with a lot of talent, without a doubt. Oklahoma State, number 12, they really surprised me in 2023. I thought they were going to be terrible personally, but Mike Gundy really was, he could have been really coach of the year in a way. Obviously, Oklahoma State wasn't a big enough contender for Mike Gundy to be coach of the year, but when you consider what this team was looking forward to 2023 or heading into it, it was not good. And Alan Bowman and this Ole Gordon really came around. Oklahoma State was really impressive last season. I think they'll be back in 2024, and they'll be even better. Should be a big contender in the Big 12. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if they won the conference. And the Big 12 is really interesting as well. Arizona obviously being new. I mean, the Big 12 is a wild card conference. It really could go to anybody. And obviously Oklahoma and Texas being gone, you don't have them in there. So, and I mean, the Big 12 as well, you only got, I mean, Arizona is the highest ranked for me out of the Big 12 teams, Oklahoma State right behind. But could Arizona win the Big 12 in 2024? That's within reason for sure. I would say Oklahoma State might be my favorite for now just because they've been around the Big 12 and they know it well. But the Big 12 especially is going to be a really interesting conference. Don't see a big standout in the conference, but they got some pretty good teams though. And Oklahoma's number 13. I do have some concerns about Oklahoma. They still, I think OU could definitely be a contender in the SEC. I mean, they are going to be a bit younger in 2024 though as well. So, I mean, in the quarterback situation, you got Jackson Arnold, you got Casey Thompson coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if Casey Thompson led this team at the start of the season, then eventually maybe it went to Jackson Arnold. We'll see what happens there. It's still too early to consider. But the Sooners, they should be good in 2024, but I don't see them being quite on the same level as, say, Texas this upcoming season, that's for sure. Then you got Utah at 14. This is a team that's going to have experience, Cam Rising coming back, but I don't know if the window is passed for Utah. They're still going to be talented, but Cam Rising and everything, I really had high expectations for Utah heading into last season, but especially 2022, and they disappointed a bit. I just don't know if Utah can still be significant. I mean, Cam Rising is an incredible quarterback, but after not playing for an entire year, I do have some questions about Utah for sure. Then you got Clemson at 15. They are probably my ACC favorite. The ACC is also a wild card conference that probably won't be very good in 2024. The Big Ten and the SEC at this point have completely taken over. I mean, the Big 12's got some good teams. The ACC's got some good teams. But really at this point, it's either the Big Ten or the SEC, and you're going to get a couple of at-large ACC or Big 12 teams into the field of the top 12, but I don't see anybody significant right now that could win a national title out of either the Big 12 or the ACC. But Clemson could still be good. They disappointed last year a bit. They came around in the second half of the season, though, so that's why I'm optimistic about the Tigers, and they're my highest-ranked ACC team. Then you got Florida State and Louisville kind of tied with them at 16 and 17. Florida State's losing a lot of talent. I just don't know also. After what was just a complete fallout towards the end of the season, it was such a promising season for this team, and it obviously just kind of crumbled towards the end of the season with obviously most significantly the injury to Jordan Travis. But Florida State should still be solid. I think they're still going to be a ranked team. Should be a contender in the ACC, and Louisville not far behind as well. Louisville's got Tyler Shuck in there, and they've got an incredible head coach. That's why I've got them this high. But Tyler Shuck really not that good of a quarterback. So that's kind of my thing about Louisville is can they still perform at a high level despite maybe not being quite as talented. But once again, with the coaching staff, Jeff Brom, they should be a big contender in the ACC. Then you got LSU on the outside looking in. LSU and Missouri kind of in similar situations. Missouri's a team that I've seen pretty high in a lot of top 25s, but they're one of those teams that are talented enough to be a national contender in 2024. I just don't know if they will be. They're kind of one of those teams that I feel like falls off a bit despite being talented. They had an incredible 2023 season, but I would go as far as to say that they maybe got a bit lucky at points. They were still a really good team, but it's one of those things. I think Missouri could be good, but I just have a little bit of uncertainty about them. LSU have a little more confidence in. They still aren't going to be great, I don't think, in 2024, but they've got talent to maybe make some noise. And there's Kansas right in between. Kansas has really emerged the past few years as a tough team in the Big 12, and they could honestly win the conference in 2024, and I wouldn't be surprised. Having Oklahoma and Texas out of there really does benefit Kansas for the Big 12, but Jason Bean and everything that's happened there, KU could be a really solid team in 2024, definitely a team to keep an eye on. This could be the best Kansas team of the past few years. They've really emerged. Then you got Texas A&M at 21, a team that's really disappointed in recent time. That's what they're known for at this point, is just disappointing. But I do think they're in a better situation now with Mike Elko. I do have some optimism about Texas A&M. I don't think they're going to be great in 2024, but they could at least make some noise in the SEC. And then you got Iowa State and West Virginia, two teams that are kind of in similar situations. Iowa State with Matt Campbell really surprised me in 2023. And Matt Campbell being around, I mean, he's obviously a great head coach, and he led that team to success a few years ago with Brock Purdy. And it seems like we're heading into one of those seasons or one of those phases here once again with Iowa State. The next couple of years, they should be pretty good. I think they're a top 25 team in 2024, and they're not quite as bright with or shiny with talent. They don't have a lot of standout talent, but once again, the coaching staff, they're a really well-coached team, and that's something that I wouldn't overlook at all. And then West Virginia, also kind of in a similar situation, surprised a bit in 2023, returning some key talent. They'll be experienced in 2024. And then you got Iowa. This is a team that was known for being terrible on offense last season, absolutely horrible, but their defense was really strong. Defense might not be quite as good in 2024, but their offense, I do think, will be improved. This will be a much more balanced team in 2024. Don't think that they are a big Big Ten contender, but they could still cause some noise and be at least a top 25 team, I think, for a good chunk of the season here in this upcoming season. And then USC's on the outside looking in. Just such a huge disappointment last year. Caleb Williams and this team goes 7-5 in the regular season. Just really disappointing. But Miller Moss came around in the bowl game and showed some optimism for USC. So things are looking better after that bowl game for the Trojans, and they're obviously a really well-coached team as well. Obviously it's tough to tell based on last season, but Lincoln Riley is, I don't care what you say, an incredible head coach, and it's going to be different in 2024. They're a team that could, they're one of those wild card teams that could be really good or also really bad. It's tough to predict on USC, but I think they are deserving of at least being at 25. Some honorable mentions: Miami with Cam Ward, the recruiting. Hurricanes could be a contender in the ACC as well. They're probably your big dark horse contender in the ACC behind Clemson, Florida State, and Louisville. And then you got Washington. Thing is about the Huskies, this team lost a lot of their key talent, and that's obviously they lost their head coach. You consider TCU, the way that they fell off from 2022 to 2023. Some might think that's going to happen with Washington, but Will Rogers and everything, I do think Washington will be better this upcoming season than TCU was if you compare the two coming off of national championship games or national championship appearances in past seasons. But I do think the Huskies are maybe one of those teams that's going to be right around 7 or 8 wins. They're not going to be a contender in 2024. They're just not talented enough, but they should still be, I would say, halfway decent in the Big Ten, which is going to be a challenging conference this season without a doubt. Once again, SEC and Big Ten at this point completely taken over. Virginia Tech, also a dark horse in the ACC. NC State, could say the same about them. You got some background ACC teams here. And then Kansas State kind of on the outside looking in as well in the Big 12, which is once again a wide open conference coming up here in 2024. But with that, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this way too early top 25. Obviously, that's kind of the point of a way too early top 25, is it could be totally wrong once we get to September. But it's just a look into who your main contenders could be in this upcoming season. So with that, I appreciate you guys watching as always. Lots of off-season content coming. We got first previews and predictions for college football teams coming up, so stay tuned for that. And appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.